Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, classmates, and sir, good afternoon. I am Hazel Grace Bering, and my task is to report about planned change. Planned change is a results from a well thought out and deliberate efforts to make something happen. It is a deliberate application of knowledge and skills by a leader to bring about change. So, what are the examples of this change? Those are technology, task, structure, and people. Today, most healthcare organizations find themselves undergoing continual change directed at organizational structuring, quality improvement, and employee retention. So, as a leader or an agent change, there are leadership roles. And to name those, number one is a visionary in identifying areas needed of change in the organization and the healthcare system. So, as a leader, you have the ability to identify areas that need change in a certain organization and healthcare system. Kumbaga, alam mo paano tingnan kung saan ang which areas that needs change. And number two, demonstrates risk taking and assuming the role of a change agent. So, meaning to say, you have the guts or the courage to take risk because pag meron change, expected mo talaga na may mga resistance. And number three, demonstrate flexibility in goal setting in a rapidly changing healthcare system. So, you have to be flexible. And number four, anticipates, recognizes, and creatively problem solves resistance to change. So, ito na yun, resistance to change. Example, hindi naman lahat ng subordinates or the people involved or affected in the change na pag meron change, agad-agad na adapt nila. So, mostly talaga, may mga resistance when it comes to having a change in a certain organization. And number five, serves as a role model to followers during planned change by viewing change as a challenge and opportunity for growth. Number six, role models high-level interpersonal communication skills in providing support for followers undergoing rapid or difficult change. So, as a role model, you have to have this characteristic of high level of interpersonal communication. Meaning to say, you know how to listen to their reaction or some ideas, no? It's not only na ikaw lang talaga ang naririnig. So, of course, you have also to open your mind because hindi naman lahat alam mo. So, merong mga bagay na alam ng mga subordinates or staff under you which na hindi mo rin yun naisip. So, you have to have this high level of interpersonal communication in order to have a smooth relationship with your subordinates. And then, number eight, take steps to prevent aging in the organization and to keep current with the new realities of nursing practice. So, you have to keep updated with the current nursing practice. So, it doesn't mean na kung ano na yung nakasanayan, you have to stick na lang there. Because every now and then, there are maraming updates that you have need to adapt in order to have a healthy or more improved organization. And then number 9, supports and reinforces the individual adaptive efforts of those affected by change. So you know how to support and reinforce, especially to those individuals who are really affected by by this change. So next, we go to management functions. Number 1, forecast until needs with the understanding of the organizations and units, legal, political, economic, social, and legislative climate. Number 2, recognizes the end for planned change and identifies the options and resources available to implement that change. So you have to recognize, because when you plan, you should lay all your resources, identify the things you need to have about the planning. So if may mga kailangan kang resources, andyan siya because you are ready. You already make it available. And then number 3, appropriately assesses and responds to the driving and restraining forces when planning for change. Yeah, appropriately assess and responds, because ang driving forces, it's either going forward or going backward. Kay meron din mga go with your plan, or positive lang sila, but there are those also who are restraining. We call that restraining forces. Number 4, identifies and implements appropriate strategies to minimize or overcome resistance to change. And number 5, seeks subordinates input in planned change strategies to modify the behavior of subordinates as needed. Number 6, supports and reinforces the individual efforts of subordinates during the change process. Yeah, I already mentioned that before also. They are just related. So number 7, identifies and uses appropriate change strategies to modify the behavior of subordinates as needed. So you have also to ready your strategies in order to modify, because sometimes if you have this plan but not all your strategies will work on a certain individual. So if this strategy will not work, so you have to modify or adjust. And number 8, periodically assess the unit department for signs of organizational aging and plans renewal strategies. So as a leader or as a change agent, you need really to assess the unit or department. For example, in the healthcare facility, you have to have evaluation, assess during monthly meetings or anytime na may kasunduan kayo na you have to meet and have feedbacks on how is your department or how is the unit is going, kung kailangan na bang may baguhin or renew some strategies that you have in the past. And number 9, continue to be actively involved in the freezing process until the change become a part of the new status quo. So I will be discussing about the freezing process later. The development of change theory. So we use here the theory of Kurt Lewin. So there are 3 phases through which the change agent must proceed before a planned change become part of the system. So unfreezing, movement, and freezing phases. So I'll be discussing it one by one. So unfreezing, the first phase, occurs when a change agent convinces members of the group to change, or when guilt, anxiety, or concern can be elicited. This means that during this period or during this stage or phase, because you already assess or you already identify that you have to change, so you have to discard the old behavior style or organization. So in this stage, you have to do the thorough and accurate assessment in order for you to proceed on the next phase. Uh, uh, Next is for effective change to occur, the change agent needs to make a thorough and accurate assessment of the extent of the interest in change. So you have to have accurate assessment or thorough assessment in order for you to plan, in order for you to have a strategy or ways in which you have to have this change. Next phase is movement. So in this phase, the change agent will recognize or address and overcome resistance should be implemented gradually and not abrupt. The change agent identifies, plans, and implements appropriate strategies, ensuring that driving forces exceed restraining forces. Change is a complex process. It requires a great deal of planning and integrate timings. Yeah, change is really a complex process, so it's not easy to implement a change, especially in a big organization or a big group of people. Recognizing, addressing, and overcoming resistance by lengthy process, and whenever possible, change should be implemented gradually. Yeah, you have to implement change gradually. Kailangan talagang ipaunawa sa kanila. Just like in the community, if you are going to have a program, for example, itong vaccination program, ayaw naman talaga magpa-vaccine ng mga tao if they didn't understand what it's all about, what are the pros and cons, the benefits, the advantages, and everything about the program that you will be implementing. So it's very important that when you lay a plan or when you plan a change, you should take it slowly and implement it gradually. So we go now to the refreezing stage or refreezing phase. The change agent assists in stabilizing the system change so that it becomes integrated into status quo. Next, if refreezing is incomplete, the change will be ineffective and pre-change behaviors will be resumed. Yeah, in this phase, I will continue first. For refreezing to occur, the change agent must be supportive and reinforce the individual. Then, change needs at least 3 to 6 months before it will be accepted as part of the system. So, it takes really a length of time so that this change will really be absorbed and accepted by the subordinates or the people affected by this change. So it will, in this stage na I will make a sample but I wasn't able to reflect it in my PowerPoint. The ice block analogy. So the unfreeze phase, it's like the ice that melt the block of ice. So unfreeze, you have to pour the water into a spherical mold. So ito na yung next phase niya, unchanged movement. So from ice, the solid form will change its mold when you pour the water on it. And then it will go to the refreezing phase if you put back into a mold to a desired spherical shape of ice. So ganyan din, parang ganyan din ang flow ng pag-change ng phases ng change. So it will unfreeze, discard the old behavior style or organization, and then movement change or movement or change, you have to implement now your plans and then refreeze or accept the change as a permanent until it become a part of the system. Change should only be implemented only for good reasons. Yeah, because change is the only permanent thing in this world, as the saying goes. But we have to change for good, of course. For example, if you have uh, gone for a long time in a certain organization or health facility, and then you come back for quite some time, and then you you notice na marami ng pagbabago, but it's for like improvement, or marami nang nabago, but hindi na kagaya sa dati na nagbago siya but for good. Maraming improvement, maraming ano ba to? Uh, bagong mga ways or or uh, strategies, or yung kagaya ng electronic records. Long time ago, still using the paper, until nowadays some of the hospitals or health facilities, especially in the cities, are now using already the electronic records. So it's very uh, much easier, accessible, and you can conserve time, because it's not like writing lahat ng mga records, sinusulat talaga. But of course, there are also advantages and some disadvantages, and mostly advantages. Change agents must be patient and open to a new opportunities during refreezing, and complex change takes time, and several different attempts may be needed before desired outcomes are achieved. Yeah, if you implement a change, of course, it's not a magic na pag sinabi mo ganito ganito, makikita mo agad yung output. But you have to be patient. It takes time. It takes several different attempts in order for you to achieve the desired outcomes. Stages of change and responsibilities of the change agent. So, ito na yun. Stage 1, unfreezing, gather data, accurately diagnose the problem, decide if change is needed, make others aware of the change. And stage 2, movement, develop a plan, set goals and objectives, identify areas of support and resistance, include everyone who will be affected by the change, set target dates, develop appropriate strategies, implement the change, be available to support and encourage, use strategies for overcoming resistance to change, evaluate the change. You have really to evaluate if it's working or good, the result is good. And then, if good, then proceed to refreezing. Support others so that change continues. You have to make it stabilize so that the change will be accepted and implemented, and it will become a part of the system. Lewis driving and restraining forces. Maintain a state of status equilibrium by the simultaneous occurrence of both driving forces. These are the facilitators, and restraining forces. Those are barriers operating within any field. Driving forces advance a system toward change. Restraining forces impede change. So, ito na yon. Pag positive lang ang flow ng change, so opportunity for advancement, status, social gratification, enhance self-esteem, family support efforts. So it will direct your your plan, your change to going forward. But if force is restrained from the goal because of this examples, of these following examples, low energy level, limited financial resources, unreliable transportation, time with family already limited. So these are the examples of forces driving to to reach the goal and restraining from to in order restraining from reaching the goal. Contemporary adaptation of Lewan's model. So these are the stages of change model. Stage 1, pre-contemplation, na current intention to change. So in this stage, parang nagmuni-muni ka muna if you have to change or not. So you have to think thoroughly. And then stage 2, contemplation, individual considers making a change. Number 3, stage 3, preparation. There is intent to make a change in the near future. So you have already this preparation. Meron ka ng ginagawa na plans, strategies for the next action, for the next stage. And then stage 4, action. So this already individual modifies his or behavior. And then maintenance, change is maintained and relapse is avoided. So in order for the change to maintain hindi siya babalik doon sa dati, you have to make it balance. As I mentioned before, as a change agent, you have to monitor or visit or assess, evaluate the change that you have made, if it's good, and if it is already established, then it is adapted and it is a part of the system already. Classic change strategies. Rational empirical strategies. Strategies assumes that resistance to change comes from a lack of knowledge. Humans are rational beings who will change when given factual information. So it's true talaga na ang humans, kailangan talaga yan na pag meron kang change na gagawin, you have to be rational. You have to set your rationally or your reasons why this change are being implemented, so that they can passively respond and cooperate to the change you are implementing. And normative reductive, use group norms and peer pressure to socialize and influence people so that change will occur. So common talaga yan, kung anong gusto ng isa or ng mga friends or ng group, so doon din. So malakas talaga ang peer pressure or influence. And then this strategy does not require the change agent to have a legitimate power base. Instead, the change agent gains power by skill in interpersonal relationships. Yeah, interpersonal relationship is really plays a big role really in this activity or in this process of having a change. You have to have this high level of or skill in interpersonal relationship to maintain the good relationship with the subordinates. Then power coercive features the application of power by legitimate authority, economic sanctions, or political clout of the change agent, influencing the enactment of new laws and using power for strikes or sit-ins. These strategies assume that people often are set in their ways and will change only when rewarded for the change or when they are forced by some other power. So parang they don't have the right to refuse, because you are using a power, you are using force in order for them to follow. So change is inevitable. It creates instability in our lives, and some conflict should always be expected between those supporting the status equilibrium and those advocating for change. Yeah, change is inevitable. We can't avoid change really, because every from time to time, uh, we have we have to evaluate if your organization or your facility or your institution is still doing good, or it needs improvement, or any um, some revisions. That's why you have to implement change. So I think this all this this is all my report. My reference is Marcus, BL, and Houston. This is all. Thank you and good afternoon.